Howdy, friends. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that stuff. Welcome to the Mic Check, the podcast that seeks to strengthen the church to make a stronger defense of the faith by biblically checking the unbiblical. My name is Mike Rule. I'm the pastor of Highlands Bible Church. Today on the Mic Check, we are going to be biblically checking productivity. Everyone has New Year's resolutions. Well, most everyone, and probably many people, will have a resolution like, I need to be more productive and get more stuff done in 2024. We are going to look at what the Bible has to say about that and also some practical tips, tools, and other things. That being said, let's roll. All right, so full disclosure, I nerd out about productivity, time management, all of those things. I get asked sometimes, how in the world do you stay so organized and do all of the things that you do? I've got three answers to that. The first one is, it's kind of in my background. Before ministry, I was a project manager. If anybody knows what a PMP is, a certified project management professional. And so it was ingrained in me working for Fortune 500 companies and running multi-million-dollar technical projects and all of that. It's just it was trained in me, and I was deeply thankful. There were times where I was on the job and I'm thinking, this has nothing to do with the kingdom. Why am I here? This is useless. And now that I realize it just helps me in so many ways in ministries, I'm so thankful for that. I think the second answer probably is that I need to. There's just so much going on in life and ministry and things. It is survival, and I believe it's part of being diligent. And the third answer, in true transparency, is it's a struggle for me. It's a struggle for me to do it in the first place, like any other human being. But it's also a struggle for me because, straight up, friends, productivity could be, and oftentimes is, my idol. I struggle with idolatry of just the sheer fact of getting stuff done and taking pride in that. And my lovely wife, Melanie, will call me out on that frequently. And she will also, sometimes I just like to get stuff done. Doesn't matter if it's done right or not. I got it done. You know, there are things that show up on my door from Amazon that are the wrong things because I just ordered them just to get it off my list that I had to order something, and then it shows up and it's totally wrong. So productivity is not always a good thing, and we have to realize and remember to put that in its place. My objective here is to kind of break this up again, talk about what's the most important thing and why we're looking to be productive. We're going to look at a lot from my good friend. He's not really my good friend. I've never met him, but maybe we would be friends. Tim Challies, who you might know from challies.org, very, very good website, or maybe it's .com. He wrote a book called Do More Better, which is a very small book and a very good book, and I'm going to be pulling a lot of things from that, and then also kind of just give some practical tips. That's my idea. We'll see how the Lord lets that work out. So what's the most important thing in our lives? Like when we talk about productivity, productivity is doing stuff. What's the most important thing for us to be doing? What should we be doing? Yeah, I'm talking existentially, what is our purpose here? Westminster Catechism answers this question. The question they ask is, what is the chief and highest end of man? And that is a funny way of saying, what's our purpose? What is our main goal? And they answer, to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Or as Jesus said in Matthew 22, summarizing the law and the prophets, when he was asked, what is the greatest commandment in the law? He said to them, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. In other words, as my friend Challies wrote, you are not the point of your life. Overall, God is the point of our lives, and we are to make much of Him. We are to love Him and enjoy Him forever, and we're to love Him and serve Him with everything that we have. So top shelf, that's what we are supposed to be most productive at. Second level, Jesus tells us too, we're to love our neighbors as ourselves. So we are to do good to others. We are to contribute to the church and society and all of that. But when we say glorify God as our chief purpose, I mean, that's a Christian-y word. What does that actually mean? We glorify God, friends, by looking more like him. We glorify God by growing in spiritual maturity, aka holiness, aka progressive sanctification. In other words, we are to be godly productive in our growth in holiness in all things. When we look at kind of the day-to-day stuff, it's important then to realize biblically what is our responsibilities, or what are our responsibilities versus what are we just concerned with. I believe it was Paul David Tripp who came up with the circle of responsibility. And there are things that we are directly responsible for biblically, and those go in our circle of responsibility. Like, number one, loving the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's everybody's responsibility. And that translates directly into how we live our lives in practical holiness and all of those things. And we're to love others as much as we love ourselves. But in specific situations, right? So I am in addition to being a follower of Christ, of course, I have those first and second greatest commandments. But I'm also a husband. And so I am to love my wife as Christ loved the church. I am to nurture her in her growth and sanctification. I'm to honor her well. I'm to live with her in an understanding way. All of those things from Scripture. That's a responsibility of me to my wife, Melanie, as a husband. I'm also a father, yes, of adult kids. So our relationship has changed, but still I have some sort of familial, if that's a word, responsibility to them. And so my relationship with them is very, very important in how I prioritize that. I would say I'm also a pastor, right? So therefore, I have a lot of responsibilities here at church as a shepherd of the sheep. And primarily two of them, we've talked about this before, as a pastor, two of my big responsibilities are to preach the word and shepherd God's sheep here, right? And then we go on. I'm a homeowner, so I have a responsibility to take care of my home and keep that up, right? I'm a school teacher 3 mornings a week, and I have a responsibility there. So what I'm getting at is these things that are my direct responsibility. We have to figure out in our own individual circles, what are your responsibilities? Now, here's the problem. There are things that are not your direct responsibilities that are your concerns. And sometimes we put concerns into the responsibilities bubble. It blows up. There are things that we're concerned with that are not our responsibility, and we have to learn to separate those out in priorities. And so it comes down to prioritizing our lives. When we talk about being productive, we have to prioritize the right things and deprioritize the wrong things and make sure they are not elevated to the level of responsibility. There also is, let's face it, a lot of personal responsibility. Some people are just flat out lazy. Some people just can't get stuff done because they're concerned with the wrong things. Some people are distracted. Some people have just never tried. Some people are just like, oh, that's just the way I am. I'm clueless and don't get a lot of stuff done, and I'm always late to stuff and always scatterbrained. It's like, okay, well, that's not honoring to other people. We don't have to make it an idol, but you do have some responsibility to honor. Romans 12 says, outdo one another in showing honor. So what stops us from godly productivity? 3 productivity thieves, which I'm adapting from Mr. Chally's book here. Laziness, busyness, and thorns and thistles. First, laziness, otherwise known as the sluggard. We see the sluggard a lot in Proverbs. The sluggard says, I can't go out the door and go to work. There's a lion in the streets. He might eat me. It's nonsense, right? But how many excuses do we make for getting stuff done? That's laziness. Sometimes we've just got to repent of our laziness and get to work. But sometimes laziness is fueled by distraction. I do not have the Mic Check Video Studio up. We will have it up and running when we get a new building. I'm going to start saying stuff like that, so maybe it just resonates in my brain. No, I'm not manifesting in a prosperity gospel way. I'm not naming it and claiming it, okay? Don't go crazy. But I'm holding up my cell phone. You can't see that. Primary distraction number 1, cell phone and all its things. I can't tell you how many times during the day, and sometimes I have to go on social media as part of my, quote, responsibility to post something for the church or to keep up on the story reels or whatever, and I get completely distracted by what I'm seeing, and I forget why I'm even holding my phone. And that's 15 minutes, that's gone because I just scrolled the reels or something like that. Or caught up on my reels that people send me, etc. And so laziness is a huge productivity thief, and laziness is fueled by distraction. And distraction is defeated by prioritizing. You've got to prioritize what you're supposed to be doing at any given time, and we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. So laziness is a productive thief. Thief number 2 is busyness. In other words, there is no margin. More on that later. Again, are you busy with the right things? Are you busy? Some people are so busy thinking about doing things that they don't actually get anything done. Some people just are spinning their wheels in the mud about busyness and they don't actually have any productivity. Some people are so overwhelmed with themselves they can't get anything done. Some people are way over capacity. Some people have next to no capacity, so the normal things of life overwhelm them. That's a problem. But some of us just live lives that are flat out too busy, and we've got to trim some of that busyness. No is a complete sentence. We've got to learn to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be involved in that. I'm not going to take on that project. I'm not going to whatever. I've got to focus on the right things. And our society, of course, with the information overload and cell phones and Netflix and endless activities, of course, contributes to that. So laziness is a productivity thief. Busyness is a productivity thief. And last, thorns and thistles. And I did not look it up beforehand, so I'm reaching for the word of God here on the mic check because we biblically check stuff. The fall, Genesis 3, God said to Adam, because you've listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten some of the tree which I commanded you, you shall not eat it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. In other words, God said, yeah, part of what is a productivity thief in our lives is the presence of thorns and thistles in the sense of sin. Work is not sinful. Work was around before the fall. God gave Adam the command to work the garden and keep it. Sin just made work terrible at times. Sin is what makes work hard because there's thorns and thistles. And so God's law has been broken, and that breaks everything. And when we look at thorns and thistles, of course, we have to look at our own sin because of original sin. On one end of the bookshelf, it could be pride. Like I confessed at the beginning of our program that I am proud of how much stuff I can get done sometimes, even if it's wrong. And on the other bookend, it could be laziness. There's sin in both pride and laziness. We've got to confess that. There's also sin in selfishness. Maybe we're so concerned about ourselves that we don't see how we can be impacting others. We have to realize the thorns and the thistles of comfort, the land of comfort in the United States of America, that we just have everything we need. We have to realize the thorns and thistles once again in our phones, in our social media, and the way that it has affected us. Endless reel scrolling, toxic comparison, not to mention seductive traps with porn or other things that we shouldn't be looking at. They're all right there. So these are 3 productivity thieves: laziness, busyness, and thorns and thistles. I want to look at more specifics and practicalities right now. There's a couple tools that Challies recommends and some tips and things to be more productive. And then I want to talk more about spiritual practicality. Okay. So let's look at 3 key tools rather for increased productivity. I'm stealing most of this from Challies, but I also do these things myself. And the first one, if you don't listen to anything else in the podcast, listen to this. The first productivity tool that will help your life tremendously is a shared calendar. That's right. Actually use a calendar and share it with others in your life, i.e. your spouse and your children. I cannot tell you how many times grown adults go into complete conflict mode because they didn't realize what was on their calendar. And scheduling something with someone becomes a nightmare because they have no idea what their life is about, right? So get a shared calendar. You can do this natively on the iPhones, of course, with your Apple Cloud email. Invite your spouse to share it with you. I understand the fake iPhone, Android does this in their Gmail or whatever, a Gmail calendar. I believe that works. I don't know because that's satanic and I don't use it. Just kidding. It's just not an Apple. So get a calendar. Use a calendar. I know this is real top shelf stuff, but you know what? The vast majority of people, and I know, don't use a calendar, and it's awful. Once you have a calendar, I am a big fan of block scheduling. And so for me, I have things that I need to accomplish in blocks, and they take blocks of time. For example, right now, I am recording the Mike Check podcast, and on my calendar, on my shared calendar, there is a thing that says record Mike Check podcast, and it's blocked out every other Thursday, and it's just there. I have blocks of time to translate the sermon passage, to do an outline on one day. I have blocks of time to write the manuscript one day. I have blocks of time to read the commentaries one day. I have a massive block of time on Friday morning that nothing ever gets in the way of that, of finishing the sermon. And so that's how to put those are my responsibilities, right? So I put those in there. So those things are on the calendar. And when I need to meet with someone or when I have to work on other things, then I schedule around those things. Okay. So get a shared calendar and get on board with block scheduling of what you need to do for your responsibilities. Even if it's like, I will put on the calendar, like there's so many things I need to do around the house. I'm putting that on the calendar. Work around the house for 4 hours on Saturday, whatever it is. Okay. So one key tool, shared calendar. Second key tool is some form of to-do list. I am a huge fan of the app Todoist. And so that is an app that you can download. You can use the free version. I get the paid version because I have tons of stuff to put in it. I cannot overestimate how critical Todoist is to my life. I have a task for absolutely everything. You'll laugh at me, but on Sunday mornings, I probably add 10 things to my Todoist because I promised 10 things to people that I'm going to do that following week. I'm going to send you this book. I'm going to send you that article. I'm going to call you to schedule a coffee. I'm going to do that. All of that stuff goes on the Todoist or the to-do list. I write everything down and I schedule it. Kind of along the lines with block scheduling, I have recurring tasks. Okay, so for example, not only do I have time blocked out on my calendar right now to record the Mike Check podcast, all throughout the week, I've had tasks that say, make sure you write the Mike Check podcast. Make sure you are ahead so you invite guests for the next couple podcasts. Make sure that you're ready to go for the Mike Check podcast, whatever, all of those tasks, right? As well as sermon productivity tasks, and of course, what I mentioned, social media updating tasks. All of those things are recurring tasks. I schedule things that are at home. I know you're going to laugh at me and probably not look at me the same way, but I have a task to change the filter on my water pitcher every other month. Otherwise, I'm never going to remember it. I have tasks to remember to change the chicken bedding, right? To give the dog her medicine, all of these things. Let's stop trying to remember these things because our brains don't work like that. And let's use the technology and the common grace that God has given us. And you can use Todoist to put things super far out. For example, I just put in a task this morning that I need to do in March to revise the worship team schedule. Okay, I just did it through the first quarter. Now I need to do it all the way through the next quarter. I'm not going to remember that when it comes time to March. I might as well just put it in there now. And another big thing with the Todoist or any to do, there's Remember the Milk. I think there's Wunderlist or other apps. If you use a thing called pen and paper, that's fine. I'm not going to laugh at you too much if that works, but we all carry around a smartphone in our pockets. Look at your upcoming tasks. I make it a practice at the end of every day or even throughout the day. There's an upcoming tasks button on Todoist. I will check that and I will say, okay, well, tomorrow I've got to do this, this, and this, and the other thing. And I've got to do that next week. What do I have to do in prep for that? All of that. So look at your upcoming tasks. Okay. When we talk about task completion and task management, pause for a water break. My water is so clean and freshly filtered. I subscribe to the 4 Ds of task management. Number 1, delay it. Here's a task. It just landed in my desk, or an email or a phone call or something. Do I have to do it right now? If not, can I delay it? And delay it, I mean schedule it. Put it on Todoist to do it tomorrow or next week or whatever it is. So the first thing is delay it. The second thing is delegate it. Does this have to be me? Or can I have someone else do this? Can I delegate it to someone else? The third task, my personal favorite, delete it. Blow it up. This isn't a task for me at all. Don't know, don't care, don't have to do anything with it. I can just delete it. And the last task, the last D, is just do it. If you get a task and you can do it in 2 minutes or less, just do it. Some of you all, and I know who you are, way overthink the simplest tasks that you could just be done with. I know when somebody says to me, I'm like, hey, did you get that thing done? And somebody says, yeah, I'm thinking about how to maybe try to start that. It's never going to, I know it's never going to happen. Just all the disclaimers that just came out. If you can do it, and a secret is, even if you can't get it all done, I like to think, if I could just get it started. Like sometimes, I have an upcoming sermon in Genesis series, an upcoming Genesis sermon series in March. I can talk. And I said, wow, I need to get going on that artwork. I just need to get some ideas in Canva, and, we can go from there. I ended up doing it yesterday because it just came together fast. You never know. But still, if you just start it, it's a lot easier than just thinking, oh, I have a cold start. And I think that's where some of you get all tripped up. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start it. I'm thinking about 15 different designs or whatever. Just get started. If you can do it, do it. So remember the 4 Ds of task management. Delay it or schedule it. Delegate it, give it to someone else. Delete it. Don't worry about it. Not for you. Or just do it. Just get it done. So shared, I always look at shared. It's shared calendar. Tool number 1, shared calendar. Tool number 2, Todoist or some form of to-do list. And for me, the third key tool for productivity is Evernote. I again do have the paid version of this because I do have a ton of tasks in there. I think most people can get by with the freebie version, but I write notes for everything on Evernote. I am reading notes for this show that I've put together on an outline right here in Evernote. And the beautiful thing about Evernote is it syncs to all my devices. I can pick up my iPad, my phone, my MacBook. It's all there. Even when I forget any of those devices and I have to run a Bible study or a meeting or something in my office, oh well, I have a backup iPad sitting here, and that is synced to Evernote as well. I prepare for teaching, for Bible studies, not sermons, but other meetings with it. They have a wonderful internet clipper that you can, oh, that's a great article, or that's how you do that, or that's a good video. I clip and download it to Evernote. When it's time for my cancer checkups, I go to my doctor's office and I fire up Evernote, and I have a little folder about health and medical, and I take notes and I store charts and other things right there in Evernote. And as I am glancing over all the files I have, right, I have conference notes if I go to a conference. I have shepherding notes where we're shepherding folks, and I have different topics that I've read online or different biblical topics that I need to research further in here. I have a little folder for forms and permits because so many things are electronic now. So various permits and forms. And then, as always, I have a ton of stuff about the mic check in here, now of which I have clicked off what I was saying from this episode of the mic check. Okay. Those are 3 key tools: a shared calendar, a to-do list, and Evernote. And I want to end by talking about 4 key practical things to do. These are things that aid productivity, that help productivity. And the first one I'm going to say, it might sound counterintuitive, is rest. In order to be fully productive, you need to know how to rest. Another pause for a drink of water. And this is the concept, biblically checking this is the concept of the Sabbath, right? Christians go round and round. Is the Sabbath still in effect? I'm way too reformed for that nonsense. Yes, the Sabbath is still in effect, and it is called Sunday. It is the Christian Sabbath, and it is reserved for 2 things: rest and worship. And we need that, folks. We need that break. Sunday should not just be any other day to get stuff done. You should have that day of rest and devotion and worship, right? But rest is something that we are very unfamiliar with in our current society. And that is the concept of margin. There's a great book, if you wanted to read another book, by Richard Swenson, and his book is called Margin. And in it, he rails against marginless living. And so margin is the space between ourselves and our limits. And probably some of you listening to this podcast right now saying, good, cool, there is no space between myself and my limits. I am running flat out all day, all week, and it seems like for an eternity, and will continue. That's not healthy. That's not okay. Right? You will have to make changes either voluntarily or involuntarily if something happens, because you can't run like that forever. What's made it worse is, of course, progress. Our cell phones. Progress was supposed to make our lives easier and give us more margin, but instead it's allowed us to do more and takes away that margin. Most people, again, are at their personal, relational, physical, and financial limits. They have no personal, relational, physical, or financial margin, and that's not okay. We make more money, we have more technology, and yet we have more information now that overwhelms us, more options for sports, learning, kids' activities. Human bodies and spirits aren't meant to take it all on. We've got to remember that. We've got to biblically check this runaway train of our marginless society. And the Lord's Day, again, is a built-in margin day. Yet so many people, and I'm going to say it, sinfully neglect the Lord's Day. If you are not prioritizing rest and worship on the Lord's Day, if it isn't just another day of the week for you, Christian, I'm going to tell you you're in sin, and that needs to change. I have come around so much on the priority and the specialness, sacredness, if you will, of the Lord's Day. It needs to be planned, it needs to be prepared for, and it needs to be prioritized. It needs to be planned. What will you do and what won't you do on Sunday, right? You need to prioritize those two main activities, worship and rest. And worship includes spiritual growth. Hey, put the phone down, read the Bible, talk about the sermon with your family, come back for prayer meeting, go to care group. All of those things are prioritized on the Lord's Day and planned for. You need to prepare for the Lord's Day. You need to think about it the day before. Okay, tomorrow's the Lord's Day. Got to get the kids ready. Got to get to church on time. Got to do this. Make sure that we're ready. And we do need to prioritize it. We need to defend the Lord's Day on our calendars. It grieves me as a pastor when somebody says, yeah, I skipped church on Sunday because it was my only day to sleep in and rest. That's not cool. That's not okay. Or it was my only day to catch up on work. And okay, there are times, might be a season where we do have to do that. That should be few and far between. And of course, there are people that work on Sundays, people in the hospitals, firemen, police, all that stuff. We call 911. We want someone to be there. I get that. Christians are, involved in that, and that's good too. But overall, just to forsake the Lord's Day for rest, that is what the Lord's Day was designed to. And when you think about rest in a way that is actually renewing to your souls. And what else would be more renewing to your souls than time with the Lord? Who gets edged out the most in our current schedules? God himself. And so the first key practical area here, rest, biblical rest. Second one, I'm going to say this too, exercise. We need it. We absolutely have to have it. Whatever works for you. For some people, it's joining a gym, getting a personal trainer. I have settled into YouTube workouts, which are they just work, pardon the pun, for me. I mean, the new guidelines came out, I don't know how long ago, 150 minutes a week. That's 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, right? I know it came from the CDC, and I know we don't trust the CDC for reasons that are apparent to all of us, COVID. But this makes sense, right? This is just common sense. We need to be moving around, and exercise has a natural stress relief. Exercise builds in margin. Exercise takes care of your body, and it's a good steward, which, by the way, is one of your responsibilities, to take care of your body in a way that glorifies God, and we do that through exercise. Some people are blessed with more physical jobs. So maybe they have less of a need for exercise because they work like dogs all day long. Guys like me who sit behind a desk, I have to work out every day, and I love working around the house. I love chopping wood and all of that stuff that gets the blood going, right? So whatever that works for you, exercise, absolutely prioritize it. So we have rest, we have exercise, and we have fun. You've got to have fun. Plan the things in advance and look forward to them. My wife and I just planned some trips for 2024. What are we going to do? We're looking forward to those things. Have the date nights. Have just hang time with your friends. Have nothing on the schedule. Family game nights and stuff. Put the phones away. Like, just have fun. And married folks, sex needs to be a priority in that as well. It has to be, because that is part of a healthy biblical marriage. And so we have rest, we have exercise, we have fun, and we have responsibility. Let's realize that sometimes it is just flat out sin if we're not being productive and we've let these kind of weeds grow all over our lives. We've got to be responsible. We've got to look ourselves in the mirror and say, nope, I'm a Christian. I have orders from God. I have the creation mandate still in effect from Genesis 1 that tells me to go and multiply and take dominion and build and create and be the light of Christ in the world. And that takes intentionality. And so just some responsibilities. Some of us need to get up early. I can't tell you how much getting up early has helped my life. I just decided to do it years ago, and now I get up between 4:30 and 5 usually. Get a morning routine and don't deviate from it. You know, my morning routine includes drinking a pint of cold water every morning, getting into the Word of God, and then eventually consuming mass quantities of coffee. Just kidding. Just 2 cups usually in the morning. Of course, working out, and then the responsibilities around the home, taking care of the chickens, taking care of the dog, making the lunch, all of these things that we do that are responsibility. And guess what? The way that God has designed our brains to work, see, I told you guys I nerded out on this stuff. The way that God has designed our brains to work, when you start checking things off your to-do list that you actually have done, what does that do to your mood? What does that do to your outlook on the day? If you have checked off 10 things that are your responsibilities that you have done before you leave the house, you're in a much better mood. I'm going to guarantee it. Because why? That's the way God has made us to be productive and be responsible with the right things. And so doing that requires, yes, harnessing the time. Figure out what you need as the best amount of sleep for you. For me, it's 7 hours. And so I make sure I'm in bed early, and I make sure I get up and I get 7 hours, and that's it. Even when I don't have something necessarily on the calendar, still get up the same time. Science has proven that that is the best for our bodies to do that. So that requires, getting to bed. Put the phone down. Stop scrolling the reels. Read a book before you go to bed. Read the Bible before you go to bed. Go to bed the same time as your spouse and get a good night's rest. And so those are some practical keys for us. Rest, exercise, fun, responsibility, some practical things to think about for productivity in 2024. Another one-off, I know that I had said that we were going to have a guest this week. That did not work out. And then thinking that this Sunday is New Year's Eve. Lots of people are thinking of 2024. New year, new me. You know how that goes. And so I wanted to give us some ways to focus our productivity in 2024 from God's Word. I also want to say again, I hope everyone has a wonderful, happy New Year in 2024. Thank you so much for your support of the Mike Check podcast. I'm looking forward to having more guests in 2024, some studio upgrades in 2024. Please continue to send in your topics and questions. You can do so by going to the MikeCheckPodcast.com and filling out the Contact Us form there. You can also send an email to mike@themikecheckedpodcast.com. If you want information on Highlands Bible Church, the best thing for you to do is come visit us on Sunday mornings. We meet in Vernon, and we meet every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. for Lord's Day worship. Part of the Lord's Day is worshiping, of course. And you can find us online at highlandsbiblechurch.org. Until next time, please continue to check the unbiblical with the biblical and I will see you again on the mic check.